And here we go. Hello, all. Welcome back to Actual Play and our second game of Girl by Moonlight. This will be our first game of seeing our magical girls do awesome things. I'm Sean Nittner, your host, and I have three lovely, wonderful people. Andrew, why don't you take it away and say something about yourself and your pronouns?
I'm Andrew, they, them pronouns, and I designed this game that we're playing, and I will be the MC today.
Awesome.
Nice.
My name's Andy. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm wide awake and stoked to be here.
Fantastic.
I'm Strash, he, him, and I've had a very long day, but I am finding my stoke for the magical girl genre and giant robots, which will carry me through the rest of this episode.
I love that nothing can keep you down, Josh. Like,
Oh, no.
10 minutes ago, Josh was like, I just pulled myself out of a coffin. I've been slapped the sleep of the dead. And now he's like, got the stoke. Well.
I have frequently been told that I'm gaming fueled. So like once I get to game, it just like pumps me up and makes me feel like super energetic and happy. And so yeah, I ramp up pretty quick. So
yeah. Nice. Well, as I said before, I'm Sean Nittner. My pronouns are he and him. And I have a tiny bit of actual play news, which is exciting, which is we just became affiliated. Woohoo. And John Harper, in support of Girl by Moonlight, has made a special offer, which is that if anyone subs tonight, John Harper will send you a bunch of his PDFs of his games, including Blades in the Dark and who knows whatever else. So thank you.
Grab bag.
Yes. John has a lot of weird stuff too. So anyway, thank you, John Harper, for that generous offer.
Yeah.
I see Fraser's in chat right now, who subbed on Tuesday. Thank you again. And yeah, so anyway, if you can, cool. If not, we're happy to have you here. And with that, let's play some Girl by Moonlight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we've got some kind of loose ends to finish wrapping up from character creation and crew creation. In no particular order, we need to do promises. We need to make sure we have names for everyone. And I believe another thing that we are missing is we haven't chosen any crew abilities either.
Yep. Sounds right. Sounds right. Thank you very much, Yakov. Thank you. You are the first. You gain the most glory for being the first one to sub tonight. You are the first one of the second night. Yeah, let's do that. I'm gonna flip over to map up.
So each character playbook, if we want to do promises, you'll have 2 prompts, and you'll write a promise about a player character. And since you have 2 prompts and 2 other characters to associate yourself with, you're going to split them evenly. And the promises are one of the ways that you earn XP during play. So they are something to play towards. They can be really big. They don't have to be something that's attainable the way you might do with like a goal in Mouse Guard or a belief in Burning Wheel. But in a similar vein to those things, they are a way for you to get extra advancement for your character.
Cool. What is the form of a promise? Can it be anything, or is there
just a sentence, usually, or 2.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So let me bring up my PDF so I can.
The prompts for a time traveler, Sean, for the promises that I have in front of me at least there's 3 different possible prompts, which includes a forgotten promise, a doomed promise, and a paradoxical promise.
Oh my.
I don't think I'm pulling. I don't think I'm. Let me pull that up. Is that on the playbook?
Yeah, so that'll be in the PDF on the playbook.
All right.
Under obligation detail, right above like stress and harm and all that stuff, there'll be a line for promises.
Awesome. Let me see if I can. Promises.
I think my
Sorry,
goal for the
I knew I
next
was gonna
run
do
is to
that.
have every playbook have 3 prompts to choose from for the 2
Mhm.
promises, but some of them, I think only the time traveler right now has 3. So Sean gets an extra special.
Nice.
Set of choices to
I
make.
have extra promises. I don't know if I can pull up the sheet. I will try to. We'll see how good a job I can do at not borking this all up by. What are we playing?
See what terrible things can happen. And then, Strash, have you looked at promises? Are you familiar with the prompts for the Guardian?
I am super not, but I just found my PDF and opened it, and I am diving into it right now.
Like for your sake, I can tell you what the prompts are.
I will totally take it. Oh, I see
Love
it.
it. So it's a promise of martyrdom and a protective promise.
Ooh, gosh darn.
Oh, that sounds like that's going to be really hard.
The stranger has a promise to change and a promise to share.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this could be sharing like literal things or parts of yourself, or they can be abstract in how you interpret these prompts, but there's something to get you thinking about the kinds of ways that your character will relate to the other characters. So yeah, the promises kind of live in the space of like bonds from Dungeon World, or beliefs and stuff from games like Brainwheel.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well,
How many of these do we need?
need 2.
Yeah, you're gonna write you're gonna write 2, 1 pointed at, so in your case, Strosh, 1 pointed at Andy's character and 1 pointed at Sean's character.
Okay.
If there were 4 players, then it would get a little more interesting because everyone only gets 2 promises, and we'd want to try to keep them balanced. But it's really simple with 3 players. Just write 1 for everyone else.
Nice.
Super. Strash, would you say that your character's reactive?
No, reaction is for. I mean, yes, obviously. But
It's not obvious. Maybe.
I was gonna say she totally thinks she's proactive.
I'm shocked.
This is definitely one of those. I don't know.
All right. Oh, our characters have changed in names, so we should say that as well, since we're.
Oh,
since we're
sure.
starting. My character didn't have a name before. I hadn't thought of it. Her name is the Prophet of Torsion, the Binder of Wills, the Gatekeeper of the 5 Stones. That's her title, and the PR person said, "Cool, you're Prophet."
Cool. Yeah. Great.
Yeah. Her true name is Signe Unadator, and yeah. So she just goes by Prophet, and her true name isn't necessarily hidden, but it's not part of any kind of marketing scheme. Like it's not a thing that people would necessarily recognize. Just as you might not know, like say Madonna's real name or something like that. It's not like it's hard to find. It's just not the thing that people
They
say.
don't go out of their way.
They don't. Yeah. And Strash, I think your character.
Yes. So there was some confusion with names, and I think my personal character is her name is Reina, and so she actually probably for PR reasons got assigned something like Fire's daughter, like to her last name because of her fire hair, not because it's actually related to any sort of genealogical thing, which goes with the motif that she hates her PR agent.
They're like changing your name and everything. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's not entirely disgusting.
So yeah, that's my character. Andy?
What about Reina's true form name when she's? We don't know yet. We don't have to know yet.
Okay, good.
Awesome. My stranger's name is Abbott, and their true self is Ipsos.
Nice. So I have a promise.
Yeah.
It's a forgotten promise.
Yes.
It's I will always love Ipsos.
There it is. Yes.
I mean,
Okay.
we talked about it.
I'm
not thinking of it as like I've forgotten about it, but it's not one that I've clearly upheld, right? Like it's
gorgeous.
It's not forgotten. It's like, oh, I have amnesia. It's just it's a failed promise. It has not as of recently come to pass.
Yeah, it's fallen away.
It's fallen away.
That's
That's my
gorgeous.
interpretation of it.
Yeah.
Is I made a pledge at some point in season 1, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
And
here we are.
And here we are, estranged.
Yeah.
So
yes, so good.
I'm really torn about my promises for Reyna because I have a dark fate about Reyna.
Cool.
My dark fate of Reyna, or fated. I chose Reyna as my fated character. You travel through time to change another player character's fate, put their name here, Reyna. What dark fate are you here to prevent? I want to prevent Reyna from becoming the gatekeeper.
Oh snap!
From taking your job, basically.
From taking my job from before, because I think when the gods were put to sleep, there was a person that had to stay with them, and that was me. And when the gods woke up, I popped out. I've been slumbering eternal with them all this time. And it's very tragic and very emo and very horrible. And it looks like Reyna is like on the beeline path to be the next hero that would seal the gods away, and she would be the one to strike the final blow, because she's amazing and she has the will and she wants to do it, and I don't want her to be trapped for millennia in the
you don't want anyone
of
to suffer your same fate.
Exactly. So I feel like I want to promise it's not at all related to that, like a different kind of promise altogether, because that's that one thing. I know. I have a paradoxical promise. I will help Reyna be the best pilot she can be.
Yes.
Which is completely paradoxical
towards that fate that you're trying to prevent.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as a reminder for our viewers, one of the things that's up with Reyna is at the end of season 1, which of course happens before we even start the game. It's this mythical season 1 of the show.
It was awesome.
I think that's getting into the rules somewhere, that's going to be a requirement.
Oh, it's got to be. It's so good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I lost a person that I was super close to who used to be the pilot of the giant Guardian mech that I am piloting right now, whose ghost is in it. Yeah, that's not going to be totally creepy or awesome. So kind of the same. All right. Anyway, so I feel like I am obsessed about the fact that I lost the pilot under my piloting skills were not enough to save them, and that probably actually changed my playbooks. Like I was much more of a fiery attack type, and now I'm kind of a guardian type. So like I feel like one of you needs to be and I think I'm going to say Sean, just because there's this irony, because Sean is like, it is my job to seal away the gates, and I will not let you do that. And I feel like I need to make a promise that I am not going to let you
martyr yourself.
Yeah, martyr yourself or lose yourself. Now I'm looking for like a good syntax for it, because like I may not know that you're from the past. I may not know what your destiny is. I don't know anything about this prophecy yet, because you've kind of kept it on the DL.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm just like, yeah, I will never lose another pilot. Whenever there's a sacrifice required, I'll do it. Especially the captain, who keeps trying to edge me out and tell me not to be as much of a hothead.
So don't let the captain self-sacrifice.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be it.
I promise I will take the fall for the captain. Yeah.
Yeah, and
that maybe has the wrong intonation, but something.
Mm-hmm.
The promise of martyrdom, right, can be like, if anyone's going to die or sacrifice themselves on this crew, it's me, and definitely not so and so.
Definitely not Prophet. Yeah,
especially not Prophet.
All right.
So good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we have any fans of Supernatural. It's a terrible show that I'm still watching. It's a terrible and horribly problematic show.
I am right there with you, Sean, but please continue.
But anyway, there's this great GIF that somebody made, and they took it from something else and they repurposed it. but it's this one person, and it's like cartoon figures. It's this one person that says Dean, and they're like diving over the other person to take the bullet, and then the other person is going around and coming back, and it's Sam going around and coming in front of Dean to take the bullet, and then Dean is coming back up under Sam to take the bullet, and then Sam is going back in front of Dean, and then Dean is going back over, because that's all they do in the entire show is the brothers fight, and then they're like, no, I have to protect you, no, I have to protect you, and it's
So
terrible
that's
and
where
it's
we're at here.
repetitive, but it's also kind of amazing and it draws me in. So yeah, I feel like there's some of that, like each of us. I mean, I think you are the superior pilot, and I think I have seen more, and I think that each gives us that sense of, no, I should be the one to take it.
Mm-hmm. Strash, if your character is impetuous and hot-headed and unpredictable, how would you feel about, I feel like Abbott would be inclined to like want to impart all of her like sort of like analytical wisdom and like temperance on you and like share that with you. It doesn't matter if you don't want it.
I think this is like a classic anime scenario where you would do it, and because I care about you, I feel obligated to sit there, and I probably like squirm a lot and try to come up with excuses, but I'm stuck anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's like, as a player, I'm inviting it. As a character, I'm sure I put up a big fuss about it, but it's probably like kind of endearing.
Sure, like back and forth, right? Like cue eye rolls and not really listening. And one of these days you'll figure it out, which is, if you don't care, it's a lot easier. So I don't know if that's like promise to share her air quotes wisdom with.
I'm okay with that.
Does that feel somewhere in there? I'm into air quotes wisdom.
Yeah, we all know what that means.
Yeah. And it's Raina, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Awesome. Okay, now how can what else are y'all thinking? Because my next step is to try and figure out how I can be sad right back at Sean.
Sean, who is muted
Mm-hmm.
to us.
It's because you can't hear the sorrow in my soul. So right now, as I'm positioning it, as I think we talked about that we were in a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and it's become estranged, but we haven't really talked about the circumstances of why what's pulled us apart.
Yeah.
And it could be as simple as that you weren't a pilot in the first season. You were like an engineer, and then we figured out you could become a pilot. And once we were working at the same level, that suddenly became weird. But or forbidden for that matter. That was sort of the other thing we're talking about, is that the pilots were not supposed to be lovers. But I don't know if you had anything else that you wanted. I'm very open in terms of like what pulled us apart, but I'd love to know what it was, so we're not kind of like, yeah, that thing that we don't know what it is.
I think without going into why Abbott wasn't necessarily, I guess, in my imagination, Prophet was a pilot before Abbott, and so the process of being exposed to Leviathans and the Leviathan sickness, like, is like, so that relationship happened before Abbott fell ill and became a pilot. Does that seem?
Yeah, I think
like
that makes sense.
I think that's what you just said to me.
I can imagine there was some high stakes moment in like towards the end of season 1 where you got exposed to a Leviathan.
So I was thinking
like,
we'll talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, you're fine. But
fine enough.
And that caused obviously a physiological change. You're now able to pilot an engine, but also it sounds like what I think what we're going towards, it also caused like a fundamental shift for us in our relationship.
I think both individually and as people in relationship.
I think my promise in season 1 was I will not let Abbott pilot an engine, and I won't let her, put herself in danger. And
Nice.
I think there was a lot of fighting against you doing that, and
You're
pretty much.
Terrible leader,
You're wonderful.
You just keep breaking all these promises.
Yeah.
And like smothering people, just being like, no, you can't face danger. I have to face
Well,
the
and that's not honestly like a really fun thing to play out. Honestly, like that whole like
Say no.
one person constantly shutting down other
Mhm.
players. So I kind of want to have like already tried it and failed at it
Yeah.
and not trying it anymore.
You're
Yeah.
turning over a new leaf.
Like I've done that as a player, and I've also had it done to me, and it's really unfun to be like, I'm gonna go do this thing. No, don't do it. And like having to fight through the other players to do cool. Actually, we want to see our engines blowing stuff up and taking risks and whatnot. So I feel like now it's just she's more resigned that she can't do that and doesn't know what to do about it. And that's part of it. Is like she couldn't stop you. You did it anyway, and you're fine-ish. But she has a lot of regret that she's afraid what'll happen to you.
Sure. I think there's some in complement to that forgotten promise pointed at Abbott. Is Abbott wanting in some way to reconcile or to like seek you out or participate in life? I imagine that Abbott is doesn't seek anybody out and is fundamentally incapable. And is like a promise to change, right? Is the context here, and the promise is to reconcile.
Yeah, to like change your relationship.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
change. There.
It's definitely strained right now.
Mhm.
I think Prophet was just like, fine, forget it. Like I can't keep you from being the person that you are, but I don't know who you are anymore. Like I think Prophet was the one who said, I'm out. I'm just making things worse. And like she went away and kind of in a huff, and things were unresolved because of that. It wasn't like a clean breakup. And of course,
No.
she totally still loves Abbott, so there's that too.
Little things. What were you gonna say?
I was sitting here and I was staring, and it was like a promise of martyrdom or a protective promise, and I just this listening to the two of you go back and forth about this story.
Yeah.
I almost like I've been kind of staying out of it, but I kind of want to say, Abbott, I think the promise that I make is not maybe even like audible. Like I don't actually see these words.
Yeah.
But I think I'm going to pitch something, and if you say no, it's cool. But I'm thinking maybe my promise to you is that I'm going to protect you from Prophet breaking your heart again.
Yes.
Yes.
That's so good.
So perfect. Yes.
Okay.
You 110%. Yes, please.
That's the best promise. Yeah.
She's trouble. She's gonna break your heart.
She's
Won't
trouble.
happen.
Yep.
So good. Awesome.
Ooh, Prophet.
Yeah. Well, I feel like Prophet has been way too has thought she's known much more than she does, and it just keeps backfiring at her. And it might be a little of Cassandra's tears here. Maybe she really does know, but it doesn't matter because people aren't ready to hear it. Like,
yeah, and you can't.
Maybe she's
prevent these
right.
Things that you foresee.
Yeah, but it doesn't. In the moment, people have to kill their own snakes, so she can say, "Don't do this," but. And that's why she has this paradoxical promise of helping Raina be a great pilot.
Yeah, it's
Even
awesome.
though she's like totally afraid that that's exactly going to lead Raina to her doom, that she's promised to stop. So this is very good. I like this.
So I guess my next question for us, since we've got some lovely promises and everyone has two, right? Is that now we can pick some crew abilities. And then we're done everything, I think.
All right, let's do it.
So
great.
the crew abilities are all the ones listed on this sheet here. Y'all are going to pick one from the core crew ability section and then one transcendent ability for the crew as well. It is generally that you pick from this sheet on your first one, but you could also take outside influence on your first one if you want and just pull from a completely different crew book.
Let's
I'm not going to
take one
stop
from
you.
this sheet because we could be digging around for a long time, unless somebody has one that they really want from another one.
That's kind of what I figure. If someone has like a strong pitch, then go
No,
for
let's keep our options limited because that is wise.
it. Does speed up decisions if you don't have too many things to decide between.
Yeah, there's some good ones here.
Mm-hmm.
Anything catch your eye right off?
Oh, just Academy Trained is pretty good. Esprit de Corps is basically gives you +1 soak on physical stuff, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Heroes of the People makes a lot of sense for the
Mm-hmm.
for how we've described ourselves.
Sure. I'm very fond of both Academy Trained, and then Red Baroness is pretty great because it's.
I feel like that one actually ties really nicely to the celebrity status of the characters. That they have these like personas that they need to kind of play around.
Dawn.
Oh yeah, that's really good. That's really good. I misread it the first time, the way that
So yeah, it's whenever you meet someone new, another player tells the MC what they've heard about that crew member.
Yep.
And then when your fame, identity, or reputation is at stake in a situation, gain +1 die.
I feel like that is not only very applicable to us, but also heavily exploitable by us, because it is reasonable to say in many scenarios that those things are at stake because we're being televised in our actions.
Mm-hmm.
Without wanting to try and break the game, I think that's a pretty strong move, and a very appropriate one.
Yeah, it suits this fiction pretty well. So there's a strong pitch there, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Josh?
I'm fine. That sounds great.
Cool.
Sweet. We're doing Red Baroness?
We are.
I will mark it in red. Bloop. There we go. And then you also get to pick a transcended ability, of which there are only 3. Plugged in, while transcended, each character gets +1 die to perceive, flow, and analyze. Heavy gear, while transcended, your resist rolls fully negate harm of level 3 or lower as long as you have an armor use remaining, and you can spend your armor to improve your position for a single roll. And armor in Blades, you would have to like bring it along, but in Girl by Moonlight, you just have an armor use that you get access to when you transcend. So as long as you're transcended, you can use your armor, and then.
I assume that also we can't use our transcendent crew abilities unless we're transcended as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So these kick in when you're transcended, and then the last one is eject. When you suffer level 4 harm while transcended, you may choose to live by immediately ending your transcendence. What do you leave behind? Who gets put in a bad spot by your bailout? So it's a get out of jail free card for dying.
I think it's a get out of jail with a catch.
It's not really free because presumably in this you're piloting an engine and your engine gets ditched, possibly other things. So yeah, it'll come at a cost, but it lets you live.
I'm a big fan of all of those. I think both heavy gear and eject seem very appropriate to our characters' sort of like protective nature over each other, and how ejecting could be a metaphor for what happened at the end of our relationships and things like that. But they're all interesting, and mechanically I think they're all strong. So I'd be happy with them.
Yeah. I was really excited. I mean, again, being fond of all of them, of plugged in as like the symbiotic relationship between the engines and the pilot. However, that's where I'm at.
I like all of them. I do not want to eject because, gosh darn it, I will die before I eject.
Nice. I think that we're at plugged in or heavy gear, and we have a vote for plugged in. So let's do that.
Okay.
Actually, I don't mean to slam on your idea here, Andy, but I actually kind of really like the idea of heavy gear. It feels very kind of like, to a degree, almost hotshot-ish. Is the fact that if damage comes at you, you just perform something so awesome and amazing that like you get out of all the damage instead of just reducing it, which I think is like very much in the pilot genre, right? Like instead of taking like a clip to your armor, you just like do something really cool and like GTFO.
Right.
I'd like to ask everyone just to like take one more look at that and maybe like see, like that's where my vote goes. And if I get 2 other votes for plugged in, I'm not going to be unhappy.
I'm quite happy with that. Any move that says, okay, so check it out. Normally you're awesome, but when you make this move, be extra awesome. That makes me happy. Like, so cool.
Great.
You're flying around in these mecha, but how does the mecha do even cooler shit? That works for me. So,
other than the part where I wish I had white out because I was using a pen, on this piece of paper in front of me, I'm totally in.
I'm gonna cheat. I'm just gonna like color it in here on the sheet because I can.
Nice.
What?
Whoa.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I'll just delete my coloring it in so that only Strash's stands because he was
Alright.
there first, obviously.
Excellent.
Ace dot filler Strash.
Dun, ta-da.
So,
Okay.
I think our crew is made.
Yep.
Yep. So is there?
Oh, do we need to pick engines? I know Strash is piloting the chariot. I know Raina's piloting the chariot.
You only really need to pick when you launch
Cool.
for the mission.
Yeah, and
Because
there can
they're
be a
all-
foot race.
Right. They're all transferable except for the one.
Except for the ones that y'all made, y'all can't pilot yourselves.
Mhm.
The magician won't turn on when I'm in it. It's very sad.
Yeah. I can just see you guiding and they're like, damn it.
Oh, I think there was totally like a classic scene where I'm like at the controls and I'm like pulling at the levers and like there's no lights. So there's just this very sad like click, click, click. And you know, like I punch the like thing and my hair's down, I'm all
Rude.
crying and I'm yelling at the magician and it stands impassive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Through
Great.
the visor, you can see the chariot like resting there with dust gathering on it, or resting or getting repaired or something like that. I like it.
Cool. Well, since y'all are already making it sad, that's a perfect note to go into the obligation phase with, which will be the first of the like 4 phases of an episode. It'll go obligation, downtime, the mission, and then fallout. And
Great.
so obligation for us is always that we're pilots, but we have that interaction between our reputations and our things that we chose for how they keep us in line, which for us is threats and fear, keeping us in line, and also that we are in sort of a sports league style broadcasting of the life or death struggle of humanity.
Yeah.
And so we're going to go around the table. You're going to describe kind of what stuff is getting your character down kind of this time around, and we'll roll to see how that's going. And like you and I will kind of embellish some of those details, and you're going to start with a certain amount of stress marked on your sheet based on your roll, and it's always your lowest resist unless you're Andy and a big cheater, in which case Andy's character is always going to roll Kudere because she's the stranger and that's what she does. And we can do this in any particular order.
Cool.
If anyone has any thoughts on how their obligation stuff kind of comes up, I'm down to hear it.
I have an idea for a threat here. I think as the start of season 2, the like new ad campaign has shown us all in our various new engines, and there was a assumption that Prophet would be piloting the chariot, and she is not. And there's like a giant building side, like 200-foot tall building that is entirely covered in a banner of Reyna, like in her regular like jumpsuit gear with chariot behind her, like flying through the sky, right? And at least that's what I imagine is the backdrop. And the pressure that I imagine is this is the threats and fear of that Prophet is going to lose her status as captain, that Reyna is going to become the new captain, and that
She's like a rising star.
Because she's the rising star, because she's the best pilot, because she's the hot shot, because she was the one who saved the day at the end of the last season. And the marketing PR folks love the
It's a good storyline.
It's a
right?
good storyline. Whether or not it's going to happen or not, it's a good storyline. And so I think she's being barraged by questions of like, what do you think about, Reyna trying to steal the command? Are you ready to give up? And at least that's how I envision her dealing with, because she has to act like that matters at least a little bit. And
They're also
does
staging-
somewhat. I don't know.
They're staging scenes where your like fake on-screen girlfriend is threatening to dump you.
Mm-hmm.
if you don't get your act together, stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's okay for me to like describe that much. I'm not sure how much I'm supposed to.
Yeah, no, that all sounds good. That's what's
Yeah.
what's messing you up this time around.
Yeah. So I think
I also like the idea that in this series especially, that like downtime is a really narrow span of time. It's not like a period of a week. It's like y'all go out, you like fight leviathans, you come back, you sleep, they're repairing and refurbishing your engines, and then you like scramble out again within a space of like 8 hours. And so half of these, like a lot of downtime stuff is going to be like barely captured moments of like you two see each other in passing down a corridor and like have a talk, or like you're like always on kind of borrowed time because there's just constantly this need to go out and keep fighting things and
awesome.
Like all of the military
Yeah. So one of the cuts is like literally me getting out of an engine and like and Astera being there like chastising me, and you know, another one is like the press conference where we're supposed to say like what we did. Yeah, we fought back the Leviathans, but everybody's like shouting me down and being like, "Don't you mean Reyna fought the Leviathans?" And so
yeah, you're delivering your like reports. And
I'm delivering like the debriefing, but it's like there's the news report teams are there and they're just like hammering me with questions and things like that. And so it's a few cuts of those. Yeah.
Cool.
I like
so it. And which one is your lowest resistance?
I don't know. Let me pull it up. My lowest is 0.
But yeah, which one is it?
Brash, or tell me how to pronounce. Tsundere. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So it implies that the thing that ultimately messes you up has to do with like the fear or the violence of this situation, right? Like that's where ultimately you are weakest. It's that kind of.
So is it that in that I do something brash, or that that
you're incapable of shouting these people down, right? That they talk over you and you kind of let them, is what this implies to me.
Sounds good. Yeah, makes sense.
If we want to take that, you know, read the mechanics, read it the other way, right? Where let the mechanics dictate some of the fiction.
Yeah, right. I'm poor at shutting people down, and of my long black coiffed hair, there are just like the few like white hair. I mean, I'm a teenager, right? But it doesn't matter. This is anime world, right? Like there are just like a few wisps of white hairs that it's not like the rogue streak, but there's like the few wisp white hairs, and she just like pushes them out of the way again and tries to calm the rabid crowd. But like clearly in every scene, I think we're seeing her just being like, breathe, try to read the report, get shouted down.
Cool. So you can go ahead and roll your resist.
Awesome. I think, and it says it wants risky.
Yeah, you can just kind of pass through those because they don't matter for rolling a resistance.
Yeah, but
okay, should be all good if you just leave them as like risky standard.
Whatever. Nice.
Okay.
I rolled a 1. So it's showing correct. Yeah, I rolled.
So you take 5 stress.
Excellent.
Rough day.
Most amount of stress,
which is the largest amount possible. Yeah. So it kind of suggests that this is a really bad time for you.
It does. It also suggests this is Sean playing a Forged in the Dark game. We just start the mission at 5 stress. That's how we roll.
Fist bumps.
And that's okay. That means forget resisting things.
How many games, Sean, did you and I do in Bloodletters exactly starting like this?
Yeah, right. We're like right before the mission goes out, we're like 5, 6, 7 stress. Cool. So yeah, I think the like where we see her like break down is not in front of people, but when the cameras go off and she goes in the back, and there's just this scene where like 2 uniformed like the people who work with us, I forget what we called them, the people who are like inoculated from the disease, there are technicians and
like deliberately exposed. But yeah, all the folks in the like, what do we call, is it like the Leviathan Defense Force or something? Like they would have some acronym for it.
LDF.
LDF. Yes.
So yeah, like all LDF personnel are either have been exposed to the Leviathans and got like a little bit of the stuff that y'all have, but not enough to be pilots, or have
Mhm.
been like forcibly inoculated or whatever else.
Right.
But
So
they,
I think
to various degrees, will also have some of the like weird like animal traits or like fire hair, etc. Like everyone, there's like this huge diversity of people in the LDF because they all have these weird traits.
right.
Love it.
So so like we just see two like khaki outfitted or LDF off like personnel walking around a corridor, and they come around and Prophet is just like has her head against the wall, and she's just, you know, presumably crying, but when she hears them she stiffens and like straightens her suit and kind of puts her game face on again, and you just see like total like broken sorrow in her eyes as she looks down. She won't make eye contact with them, but as she looks down and goes
Yeah.
on. Yep. Cool.
Mm.
What a lovely opening note. Next.
I can totally go. I have a cool scene in mind here. Okay, I'll just go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you recall, at the end of season 1, my character was like in a coma. Like I had just woken up, like literally like a day ago. I was not in good shape from that last fight. My mech doesn't want to work with me, and it's all kind of a disaster. So I think it starts with me actually sitting at what looks like a wheelchair, and like my hair is usually like this like crimson explosive red and fire, you know, but it's like muted down. So like I'm in a dark room and my hair is like a pale blue and it's like just barely moving, almost like somebody like turned down the gas burner and it's not quite working. And I'm sitting in this thing. And if this was the anime, because I'm gonna totally describe this like an anime shot, right? You know, like it flashes like, and I see, you know, like the chariot with like, you know, this attack spearing through it, and I hear like echoes of the fight and like me yelling no and all the like usual stuff. And then there's just this voice that announces like 3 minutes or something like that. And you see me like get up and like my limbs are shaking and it's obvious that I'm not in like good shape. And then I just like punch the handle of this chair like 2 or 3 times, and you see like the hair like shifts to yellow and then like goes to red. And then there is like just like there's a counter shot of like lights on a stage and the curtain parts, and I pop out and I do my like standard like pose and I say my catchphrase, and then like you hear like this explosive cheering and it's all like kids in the audience and it's some like birthday party, and there's like the approving PR agent like nodding like I did the thing right. And so like this is what I'm dealing with right now. That's what's causing
despite the
stress.
fact that you're like traumatized and not emotionally ready for anything, they're like, cool, go sign 100 postcards, like,
and entertain these rich spoiled children that will expect you to be super peppy and energized and totally, you know, in you know the mode.
Or even physically ready, right? Like it sounds like you just popped out of a wheelchair, right? Emotionally, physically.
Yeah,
and I think that is like I am still in pain and in grief and mourning my friend and like totally devastated. And they're like, please entertain children. Go. So,
cool. Yeah. Do you want to roll your?
Yeah, for sure.
Kudere, I guess, is your lowest.
Kudere is my lowest. So why don't you tell me about like what pulls me apart here?
Well, because Kudere is for panic and social pressure, so it's perfect. You've already described it, right? It's just like people are telling you to do things and you have to do them, and it's like horrible and dehumanizing and sad.
I got a 3. So do I take
3 stress? Yeah.
I think there's can I describe what this looks like?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I think there's probably a moment where like I'm entertaining the kids and like I'm posing and I take a weird step or something, or like maybe one of them tells me like how I was such a hero in that great big last fight or something, or they talk about like how much they value the sacrifice of my friend, and like my eyes just like I have like cat eyes or something, and like the water just starts pouring out of them. I have that like crying face and like everybody freezes. My PR agent gives me the like, you're doing it wrong look. And I have to like suck it up and tell him that these are tears of joy for how much my friend sacrificed and how proud I am of her. And
Yeah, you hear like no in your little earpiece being like, those better be tears of joy.
so yeah, there's a lot of grinning through tears kind of stuff. So yeah.
Great. What about our friend Abbott?
In contrast, when we move away from this like boisterous and like all of these like faces and this public facing energy, Abbott is curled up and sitting on the like in between the feet of the moon, and is very quietly like talking with the moon, but there's, as far as anyone else is concerned, there's no conversation being had other than
You talk, there's no clear response, and then you talk some more after a pause. Kind of. Yeah.
And Abbott is very like slight and easy to miss in amid these like massive wolf-ish canid feet. And at some point, somebody inevitably comes by.
Maybe Bantam.
Highly likely that it's Bantam. And Bantam, in all of her like pep and energy, just shamelessly starts castigating Abbott for being lazy and for not working, and asks her where her tools are, and basically calls her listless and takes her by the scruff of the neck and like hauls her over to like the tool bench and like puts a screwdriver in her hand and points her at something that needs
The like
fixed.
adjacent bay is Bantam's team and all of their engines.
Utterly.
He's like, yeah, you got to fix this one. You got to kind of break that one a little bit so that I can get more points than that pilot. And then,
Yeah. And throughout all of this, Abbott doesn't say anything. Sort of like, mm-hmm. And it's at some juncture, Bantam will hopefully walk away, and I imagine Bantam looks over her shoulder, like, is she doing it? And like, screwdriver.
yeah.
That's
Well,
what
and
I think.
it's not even a thing like you can. This isn't even like a thing where you can just do lip service, right? Like, as much as you don't, like, you have to do this, right? Like, it's you got to
your
fix
job,
it, right? So it's all the more brutal. You can't just be like, yeah, and see ya.
And bye. And talk to me, y'all, about what these what the LDF uniforms look like.
Are these like standard, just like coverall jumpsuit type things?
I think for the personnel they are, not for us. I think for personnel they're like olive green. I said beige earlier, but what I is the wrong word. I'm thinking like dark olive green, and like they've got their insignia on their chest, and it has their rank and other things like that. Like, and we are, I imagine we are like very color coded to our engines, and like because we're like,
you have like team colors.
Right. And yeah, we must have like a team crest, and it's really prominent. I think
each hangar is kind of like, has like the stadium vibe where there's like awards and banners and stuff hanging very high up in the hangar over top of the engines. Right in it, and like all of your crew for your unit have like the same color of jumpsuits. So it's like y'all maybe are camo green or olive green or whatever, but the next guys over are in khaki, and the next guys over are in like navy blue or whatever. And that is like a more muted version of the whatever your team colors are, which are very bright and overstated for those of you who are actually pilots.
Sure. Great. And see, that gives me enough information to work with, which is that Abbott doesn't ever wear that crap and gets into trouble constantly.
Yeah, because you're dressed like you're the wrong type of person.
Yes, very much. I feel like, so I don't know what overall either of your characters look like, but Abbott is like very, very small and like very like narrow, and ends up wearing, like, as far as you can tell, like it's probably like an oversized like sweater that might be like military surplus, but probably not. Like, and like pants with really big pockets. Like there are like even like knickers that are like tight at the calf. So
like the daughter of a fisherman who borrowed some of his clothes.
Sounds great. Sure.
That's what I'm like,
Yeah, somewhere in there. Somewhere a very slight person. And like, those Highland cattle with their really great, like, shaggy hair?
Yeah.
A whole bunch of that.
Photogenic cows.
Yes. Those insufferably fantastic cows. But it's all gone gray and silver. And there's bright points depending on how the light hits it. And we'll talk more about various versions of Abbott expressing Leviathan sickness, but that for sure. So, that being said, now I need to roll Kudere.
Yeah, because as a stranger, you just always roll it, and it's your best one.
Mhm.
Because unlike these nerds, you're actually just good at dealing with that stuff.
Mhm.
Being a little fake adult. Who does
That's right. Absolutely.
Fake it up.
Great, so you take 2 stress.
Ta-da!
And so what does Abbott kind of like coping with this look like? Because it doesn't really get you down. So like, what is it that makes this not be such a bad thing for you?
I think, despite how Bantam, in essence, tried to, both castigate and humiliate Abbott in front of all these other folks who are theoretically Abbott's peers, but who in fact are not. They're not on her crew, and she's a pilot, so she almost shouldn't be fixing anything. Kind of like there's
You
that
have like a weird position within this.
and I think the thing that sort of sets Abbott to rights is that there are different engines like different tools, and so she spends time figuring out which engines like which tools better, and and we'll just label them with who the tools are for, like as a way to like sort of do something useful at large.
Mm. And that, I guess for you, yeah, like hanging out with the engines, you're pretty equanimous in your love of them or appreciation of them.
Yeah, very much. I think Abbott will very happily ignore what Bantam said, but go help those engines. Whatever.
Yeah, 'cause some of them are damaged, and like one of them is maybe like acting up.
Yeah.
Like
we'll
it's doing stuff inside of its berth and trying to like claw its way out or something. You have to be like, okay, buddy.
Yeah, and I'll be like, I have a screwdriver. Dear everyone, go away, and like we'll go have a conversation with this engine.
Yeah, and calm it down.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So I guess that brings us to the end of the obligation phase, which is good news for y'all. And so because we are in the particular series that we are in, the Bastion itself does stuff during downtime. So it's going to help you out.
Yay!
And it has a prioritized list of things that it does. And so it's going to roll a number of dice equal to its like track. So it has like a 15 pip kind of like health track that starts full. So I'm just going to quickly fill this up. Or I'll just put a pip for where we're at. So it's going to roll 3 dice. It rolls a number of downtime actions equal to the current darkness tier, which is to say always at least 1. And then it prioritizes based on the following. So it will work on a long-term project for a flagship upgrade if one is already underway, which it isn't. It will make preparations if the darkness track exceeds readiness, which it doesn't. It will help the Bastion recover if it's hurt, which it isn't. And so its last thing that it'll do is it will increase the darkness track rather than the preparation track, rolling as if it were doing it. So basically it's going to make things worse because everything's fine right now.
Don't do that, Bastion!
And everyone's being complacent and it's all good.
Right. Once things are fine and everything's done.
Yeah, it makes trouble instead. So the Bastion is helping. And it's gonna roll 3 dice. It's gonna do a 3-die fortune roll.
Nice.
And this is like making preparations in reverse. So it's going to. Great, I got a 6. So y'all are going to start out with 3 pips filled on the Darkness That Hunts track, which is equivalent to kind of like heat and bad stuff happening. Once it hits 15, that's the end of the season.
Okay.
essentially. So cool. The Bastion has helped. I think what this looks like is just that everyone is growing complacent. There's lots of like weird political bullshit happening, and within the LDF, what this looks like is like an increase in match fixing, a lot of people getting upset about various like betting pools getting fucked up, and more pilots being injured, taking unnecessary risks.
Yeah, if we can play up a little bit the Reyna coming out of the coma thing, like normally the idea is that we just go and go and go and go and go. And I think Reyna being in a coma, maybe even for just a few days or a week or some short amount of time, but even that was like threw off our cycle. Like it like messed us up, and we haven't gone out since then, and people are getting really antsy for us to like get back to it.
Sure.
Basically, end of season 1 event was enough to, you know, we lost a pilot, you know,
but also they made some sacrifice for a reason, and maybe if we, you know, think about like the mechanics that we have in the game, the idea of like at the end of the season we would have staged a desperate counterattack, which would be to make a strike against the Leviathans that gives them pause and buys a moment of peace for the Bastion. So like their sacrifice worked, and the Leviathans like fucked off for a bit, and things were a little more chill, and there was some time to recover. And now everyone's getting all antsy.
I like the idea that already even this. Sorry, go ahead.
If there were other pilot teams, they probably had to pull double shifts to cover for the fact that we're not going out as a squad.
Yes, also that. So all the other units are suffering more attrition and getting worn out and getting grumpy with you guys.
And I also love the idea that our fans are super fickle. So like the moment we're not there, they're like, is it falling apart? What's going on with this team? Are they going to be decommissioned? One's in a coma. One's lost her confidence. One died. Maybe they're just going to be done with it. You know, like instantly they just go from we love you to like.
Yeah, all the fan sites are like tearing you guys down. And
and it's just, there's just forecasting doom. Like when a star player gets hurt on a team, and suddenly people are just like, this team's ruined.
They don't have what it takes. They're done for the season. All that stuff.
Hyperbolic negativity a go.
So it is amid that atmosphere that you all are given a quick brief, which we don't need to go into the details of, but you know, like it has been decided, it has come down from on high that y'all have been deemed combat ready and are to be sent out to like do some stuff. You're gonna like make a sortie in whatever amount of time, and then now this is the downtime in the lead up to that. And so in downtime, y'all can
I add one little element of the briefing?
For sure.
Like it doesn't matter too much about the briefing, but at the end of the brief, Prophet says, and then there were 3, and she walks up, you know, she leaves the room, and you see that there's that like in her little notepad in her briefing notes where they're supposed to be like taking notes, she's just drawn this little triangle with like 3 gems at each tip, and it's like some ancient artifact of yore that symbolized when there was only 3, something bad was going to happen, right? Because our team was 4 and now it's 3, and anyway, that's just my little like touch of her prophesizing doom and gloom.
Yeah, and there's like the empty chair that was Sarah's. Yeah. Okay, so in downtime, y'all have a few different things that you can do. A special one for our playbook is rather than investigating the darkness, we have make preparations. And so when you make preparations, you describe how you are readying the Bastion for the next attack and roll an appropriate action. We advance the readiness track based on the result. And then readiness is what kind of gates our ability to do certain types of missions. And if you leave the Bastion unattended, it's going to roll its readiness against, you know, bad stuff that can happen to it. And we'll see kind of how it fares while you all are not protecting it. So there's that one. And I think in the context we have established, like making preparations could be like helping out or supporting some of the other Leviathan Hunter units. It could be like drills and training, or helping set up fortifications, or analyzing like Leviathan attack patterns and trying to predict stuff. You know, like there's anything you can think of that would make the Bastion better equipped to deal with being attacked by the Leviathans. It's all fair game. And any abilities that y'all have on your character sheets and stuff that reference investigating the darkness, those just map into make preparations instead. So I think the stranger has some bonuses for that. And then let's see, what else do we got? You can also do the social link action. So you choose another PC, you describe what the two of you do together. If it's something the other character would enjoy, they offer you an extra die. You roll an appropriate action. The chosen character gains links with you, and they can spend links in various ways, which I will go over later. The stranger can't social link, so sorry about that. You can help a friend recover, and when you help a friend recover, you do something to support their healing process. It advances their recovery clock. Every 4 segments, they take all their harm, they downgrade it by 1 level. And lastly, you can work on a long-term project. And so you describe what you're setting out to accomplish. I will set the size of the project clock, standard clocks being 8 segments. And then you roll whatever action makes sense for progressing that, fill in ticks in the standard way that y'all will be familiar with from Blades. And then once it completes, you get that thing. One project of note is that the flagship has an upgrade clock, which you can get rolling, and that will unlock the different parts of the flagship. I'll pull you guys over to it. So down in the bottom left, there is the flagship, which in our case is the Conclave, a floating fortress that is both ancient and being retrofitted with modern stuff. So you can unlock extra things for it, which are all in a grid in the bottom left there. And those are the 4 things that you can do.
Prepare the Bastion, social links, recover. What was the second one? Investigate?
So investigate is replaced by make preparations. Social linking, helping a friend recover, and working on a long-term project. And I'm sorry, I missed, there's a bonus one, which is also that you can bond with an engine. It's essentially the same as social linking, but you're doing it with a giant emotional robot. And instead of them getting the links on their sheet, you assign them on yours attached to the engine. And while piloting that engine during a mission, you may spend links with it to recover stress and shrug off harm specifically. So they're like links that only work for a narrower category of stuff, but that always live on your sheet.
Andrew, are these on the play sheets, or are these in the Google Doc if people want to follow?
They're going to be in the Google Doc, all of the standard downtime actions, with the exception of bonding with an engine, which is on the series playbook because it's a special.
So I've got that one up. You want to throw the Google Doc chat if other people want to playtest this game or want to follow along? No.
Yep, there's the link in chat.
Perfect. Thanks.
So yeah, basically there are 5 things you can do. While y'all are contemplating that, I will give a quick overview of what social links can do. So when someone does the social link action with you, you mark sheets or mark links on your sheet based on how they roll. And then you can spend those links to recover stress, to help them shrug off harm, to give them a helping die without spending stress or needing to be there, or when they roll a 4 or 5 when rolling for Eclipse, which is what happens when your stress bar fills, you can spend a link with them to keep them from falling into Eclipse, which is where they get all edgy and risk dying. So they are kind of like a versatile X Factor mechanic to help you be a better magical girl. Social links.
Better magical girls. Cool. Does anyone have things that they want to do? I have some ideas, but none of them are none of them are order of operation sensitive.
No, go all in if there's a thing that you if you got a clear line.
All right. And we have 2 downtime actions, right?
Yeah, we get 2. You can take more. And basically what happens is every time you take an extra one after you're allotted 2, we roll the dice and there's a chance that the darkness that hunts us track goes up, which is to say that like you are punished for wasting time and faffing about.
Right. Even if faffing about is like trying to make things better.
It's not fighting Leviathans, so
It's
you
not
know.
fighting Leviathans. So I want to meet with the engineers and the technicians and tell them and I grab one of the chiefs of the engineers and say, there's something I've not told you yet. Our engines are capable of more than what we have seen in the past. There is power yet untapped within them. And she looks down like she's really reluctant to say this and says, let me show you how to prepare them. Because I know we had like flashbacks to season 1, but like however awesomer we were in season 1, we can be like more in season 2. So whatever cool thing we do, this could be like the first time anyone ever saw it as you describe it. So I want to prepare the Bastion by like helping them to fully activate the
Right, you're gonna like start breaking down some of the seals that like limit the power of the various
exactly.
engines.
And she knows that the more that she does this, the closer she gets to somebody being the gatekeeper and sealing the gods away, which is good and bad and horrible and it's sad and everything like that. So she's reluctant to do it, but now that we've lost one of our crew and we have to go back,
Right, you're feeling a little desperate, like
feeling desperate.
Cool.
Awesome. So what action am I going to roll to do that?
What does that feel like to you?
Let me look at them.
So you're teaching people something, so something like express seems like a front runner in my mind, because you're using your words and you have like an agenda, which is you want them to do this thing, and to do it correctly.
Let me pull up the list of the verbs again. Apologize for that. I should have thought of this first. That's.
Although this could also be confess, because you're blabbing information that is secret and that only you know.
Yeah, I think it's confess. I think I'm gonna reveal I can, and I know exactly how this could get in trouble, is because I think if any of the PR folks knew that this was out there, they'd be like enraged that I hadn't told them, like, oh yeah, you can totally overclock the engines. Yeah, there's totally ways to get more out of it.
Oh, did you guys not know that? Sorry. Would have been good last year, I guess, while we were fighting them and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to tell you.
Exactly. She knows that the more they learn, the more they're going to abuse. And so, yeah, I think we've always just like hooked up into the machines, and we just sort of get in, and I say they respond to our genetic makeup, and normally they have just sort of been contacting us through physical contact. And she like pinpricks her finger and she's like, but if they know about their pilots in advance, they can be prepared. And like she just like puts like a pinprick of her blood on the magician, and we like see like some like lights glow inside it as it's like revving up even in the hangar. So it's like a thing that the pilots have to do, but that they'll get more out of the engines for it.
Great to share this.
Yep. So
secret blood magic.
Yeah.
With
secret blood magic.
Authoritarian militarist government.
Who I'm hoping
could go
won't
wrong.
use it. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Go ahead and roll confess.
Does this have a position, or because it's a downtime action?
It's a fortune roll in downtime. Okay. Yeah. So just roll your confess and don't worry about the position effect.
Wah. Okay.
The worst day.
Unless you have anything that would change your effect level.
Well, I should look at my moves. I have saw it coming. We should probably also talk about these because I forgot about them. My moves are saw it coming, special armor to protect against surprise or misfortune. May spend special armor to be in 2 places at once or perform some feat of time manipulation. And my transcendent ability, which won't apply because I'm not transcending, but on the other side of time, when a friend is in danger, you can push yourself to pull them out of the flow of time. This removes them from harm's way and sets them up to act against their aggressor. Time traveler, yo.
What was
Cool.
that?
So yeah,
So
I don't
good.
think. Yeah, you don't have any of the like weird prophesizing time traveler stuff that might have bumped your effect up. So
Yep.
we get a single pip of readiness.
Yep.
This makes a small difference. I think probably the thing that limits the effectiveness of this is that you're only sharing it with like your mechanics and like other people that they trust.
Mhm.
Flow to kind of trickle out to the other crews.
Well,
And
and
the competitiveness of all of the teams makes
right.
it easier to share this with each other.
And the way we did it in my time, I don't think is necessarily reproducible now. So they still have to take this kernel of knowledge and figure out a way to
like adapt it
with current technology and what. So it's like I've given them the seed and they can work on it, and I'll keep working with them in further downtime actions, but to advance it. But yeah, I think it's just getting them started.
Cool.
Cool. And do you want to have us each do one and then circle around, or should we do both of them?
I think taking turns is good.
Perfect. So that was mine.
Anyone else have a good idea?
So good.
Team. If I have to do it, I'm happy to do it. But we should totally start a long-term project to work on the Bastion, because then the ship will help us and we won't get punished.
I
But more
figured
importantly, I saw some of those upgrades and I want them precious.
I saw your reaction, and I just figured that would not only be the thing that Strash would want to do, but it would also be the thing that Reyna would want to do. Right? Like it. So yeah. I think you should go for it unless you have some other action you need to do.
The one thing that I want to do, so I'm in a little bit of an awkward position because I feel like, so the only person I can social link with is your character, Sean. And if I recall, social linking...
Not the case.
No, everyone can social link with Abbott. Abbott can't social link with you.
Yeah.
So it's like a total one-way thing where you can go and hang out with her and it benefits her, but she doesn't have, like, she can't
benefit us.
Output the social energy.
So, right. So yeah.
So
it's
there is no doubt in my mind that I have to bond with my engine. So that's like a thing I have to do, and I'm happy to do an LTP if you folks want. Or I didn't know, Andy, in particular, your character is connected to objects more than mine is, so I didn't know if that was a thing that you wanted to get going, but I'm okay with either.
Josh, I think if you really want to bond with your engine, you should go bond with that engine.
Yes, I would like to bond with my engine.
Yes, go with Stoke.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am super pumped about this. So Andrew, you should talk me through bonding with my engine.
Okay, so it's a lot like social linking, except we never know if the engine likes the thing you're doing with it. And so the basics kind of stand. Let me just find where I put it. I'm bad at navigating documents. Here we go. So we still need you to describe what you're doing, the way that you're like hanging out with your engine and forming this bond. So you're going to roll as if you were social linking. So you're going to roll an action that's appropriate to the fiction you describe. On a 6, you're going to get 3 links. On a 4 or 5, you're going to get 2 links. On a 1 to 3, you get 1 link with the engine itself. And on a crit, I think you just get 4 links on a crit.
I don't think I can get 2 dice. I think it's like literally impossible.
So for now, that might not be something we need to worry about. But
yeah, so it's a non-issue right now. But I think what happens is like there's like I kind of like sneak into the hangar and I like furtively like scamper along and climb up. I guess at this point it's going to be the chariot, and I'm going to get in, and I've like brought my lunch, and I like look around. So like I'm like upset and like not upset, like I'm nervous that somebody will spot what I'm doing, right? So I'm gonna like actually like shut it down and initiate like the pilot rigging procedure or whatever it is. And I think that there's going to be a moment where like what I essentially do is I've had a hard time, and Prophet doesn't talk to me in any way that can be misconstrued by me as friendship. So I essentially, my best friend who died, I'm going to sit in the engine and have a chat with her ghost in it, essentially. Like, I don't expect her to react. I don't even expect the engine to react. But what I'm going to tell him is that like I'm going to tell him about my day and how things are tough and like, stuff that's going on with their family and what's in the news. And then I'm going to take the engine out for a spin. And I'll tell them that I'm like calibrating metrics or like attuning to it or some nonsense. It's basically like, everything's fine here, carry on. So that's my plan.
So I have had a realization about this, which is that there is a clear indicator for something that could give you a bonus die, which is that we have its virtue and its impulse. And I feel like if you play into either of those, it's like when you hang out with someone and they say they like the thing, that's our clear answer for what. So if this has something to do with the engine being powerful or tormented, I would say this is a go. And given, I feel like we're maybe playing into tormented because it's haunted by ghosts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, totally. You can have an extra die, Strash. Go for it.
All right. Let's see how this works. Just a fortune roll, I assume, or how do we set
Yeah,
this up?
exactly. There's no real consequence here.
Hang on one
You
second.
can have a bonus die. And what action are you rolling?
That's a good question. Help me out a little.
So
Am I being expressive? Is it,
yeah, are you trying to talk yourself into something? Or
Like being okay?
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Is this just that you're like venting to the ghost, in which case it would be confess in my mind?
Could be that. I think what it is really, I'm just like lonely and I'm making a friend. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally
I mean,
makes
I
sense.
do vent, but it's not because I'm upset, so I need to go talk to my engine. It's I'm upset and the engine's my only friend.
Right. It's kind of like you're trying to use your problems as a way to convince someone to like you or to be close to you.
Yep, absolutely healthy, like most anime characters.
Cool. I mean, that can be expressed then.
All right, let's rock it. Here we go. All right, dice. Let's see how this goes. You want to roll with me?
Do good, dice. Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get to, in your links section on your sheet, you're going to write the chariot and then have 3 links with it. And so, yeah, when you spend them, those will let you either recover stress on your sheet, ignore a single harm tag and its penalties for as long as you're transcended. The engine, you can tick one of those to gain a helping die from your engine helping you. Or if you're going to fall into eclipse, your engine can keep you from doing that by spending a social link with you as well. So pretty
cool. I'm gonna just flavor something that I said just a little bit. I have a feeling that I do this bonding with the engine, and then like I finish my lunch or whatever. Like as I do this, like put my hand on it. I'm like a good talk or like whatever, and then the moment that we see me taking it out later is actually my first test pilot run. Like they're ascertaining whether I'm capable of going back out into the field, and I'm like, all right, buddy, I trust you. And then it, like the flames appear like on its main, because I think it's like partially bestial shaped, right? Is that was our
It was like a weird goat centaur thing. Yeah.
awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So-
It's
Chimerically.
yeah, it's chimera, but it's a quadruped, and I think maybe it has like hooves and claws and
Yeah, it's got like
Bones.
back hooves and
And-
claw feet as the front feet, and then it has arms and like a goat's head with huge horns.
right.
That's
and,
rad.
and a lot of bones sticking through the stone, like a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really like bony, and it's bone. The color of the stone is all bone color.
I think that there's just like when we saw Zyra piloting it in the previous season, like it definitely had like a very like aggressive, like forward punching stance. And I'm sure that when we get to combat, this kind of might become my motif again as well. But I think for the test pilot run, I just close my eyes and I'll like keep the hands of the controls like real loose, and then I just like let them like sort of like run on their own, almost like I'm not trying to force it to do a thing. I'm just sort of like listening to what it kind of wants to do. And like, you don't usually see engines outside of combat, but it's like doing the thing that like horses and goats can sometimes do, where they do the like hip skip and like, you know, bounce around and actually acts like a little playful or whatever. So yes, I've bonded with my engine. I feel so good.
Nice.
Great. There's a horrendous crater outside where it's been having fun.
Yes, worth.
I imagine the like testing grounds being like there's a secluded kind of like beach area, and that there are these big long shallows out into the ocean, and so like a lot of your deployments and fights are going to be like out in the ocean, just like the engine is like waist deep in seawater doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Probably kicking up a lot of steam if it's on fire when you're piloting it.
Nice. I feel like as soon as you go out to do that, instinctively, or now, or not instinctively, it's been trained into her now that Prophet like looks up at the clock and it's just like, okay, 4 hours before they'll send us out, right? Like as soon as it shows that you're like fit to go, like
Yeah,
Start
like,
the clock.
you start the clock, right? And it's not even like resentful. It's just like, okay, here we go. Better start getting prepared. How about you, Andy?
Oh gosh.
What's that gonna do?
Abbott is absolutely going to start a long-term project of upgrading the Conclave.
Did you see we can get more engines?
so you can get room to store more.
Yes,
And
that's different.
you can already store 2 more. You can go up to being able to store 4 more, but you still have to go retrieve them.
Get them
out there in the broken world. So
Someday, team, I believe.
So Andy, what do you have in mind?
I'm trying to figure out what the most like if Abbott's basically doing this because Abbott feels responsible to and for the engines and her team. It's like how do I make this nicer for the engines? And in the minute I'm just like, an observatory seems like just offhand, like as a thing to prowl and look around for, and gives Abbott an excuse to basically kind of go all over the Conclave and like, where would this go? And spend time sort of like analyzing the space and talking to doors and the Conclave itself. I feel like there's a lot of walking empty hallways and back corridors and like crawling through service ducts sort of aimlessly.
There's a lot of space that is in disuse or millennia old disuse.
right.
Yeah.
This is the walking through the catacombs, right? Like you're discover like it's
Mhm.
our hangar and it's our battle station and everything like that, but there's so much of it that still hasn't shown that it's profitable. So everyone else has forgotten.
We don't know how to use it.
Yeah.
So I think there's this sort of lonely, quiet, like small footsteps down corridors that are dusty where there aren't any lights.
Well, and a lot of the art that you had presented to us, Andrew, was like these giant sculptures. So I also imagine like your tiny little shadow in this huge hallway of like nothing at all, right? And you're just like this one, we hear just like your footsteps echoing on the stone floor.
I think there's a core set of like corridors and byways and accesses that are designed on like a engine scale, so that you can move around inside of this thing, and that you as a regular person have to like walk through those a lot of the time, and so there's this eerie like echoey.
Man, that is our fitness routine there, just like running around this huge space.
Yeah, it's really big. I think some of the higher ups have like the golf carts that they'll drive around and stuff. But
while we're running,
but yeah, that Abbott's exploration of it is on foot and has like a tentative aspect to it.
Very much so.
Great, cool. So we're working on the observatory.
Yes.
I'll just bring a clock into this.
Great.
Since we have all these fancy clocks. So it's going to be an 8 count clock. What action do you think you are using here?
I can't decide. I'm considering either analyze if this place won't talk to Abbott, or empathize and like asking this place to tell her stories about what it was, how it was used, so that she can continue to find her way.
Yeah, like I feel like anyone else would be like, I'd be like, oh yeah, it's clearly like analyze or perceive, like you're actually.
Yeah.
But here you can kind of ask it stuff because you're able to feel the emotions of the space.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I feel like empathize is totally legit.
Great.
Use of your character and her stuff.
What she's on about.
Because yeah, you have the move things feel. You can empathize with non-human things as if they were people. If you use it to gather information, you can ask questions from any playbook currently in use by the crew.
True story.
So in conjunction with you using it to advance this project, I would totally entertain the idea of you asking me a gather info question if you are so inclined.
Say that again for me. I was pretending I knew how to click boxes for dice.
I mean, go ahead and do your roll and we'll see how much progress you feel on the clock.
Sure.
But also based on that result, I'm happy to answer some gather info questions.
Yeah, awesome.
About the conclave.
Great. A whopping 3.
Okay, well you get one tick, and
awesome.
You can ask me one question.
Awesome. And that's one question that is from any of the playbooks that are currently in use.
Yeah, so it could be from yours or from the Guardian or the Time Traveler if you want.
Yes, awesome. Let me.
Because every playbook, just for those of you viewing at home, has a different set of questions. Some of them are really weird. Like the Time Traveler has really weird ones that are all like time bendy. The Stranger has a lot of very like practical, functional ones, and the Guardians are all about spotting danger, protecting people, stuff like who here is willing to do violence. What might happen if I do such and such, those kinds of things. So
I think Abbott dearly wants to know what she perceives here despite an effort for it to be concealed.
Okay, going right for the meat stuff.
For the jugular.
Yeah, so what do we see in the Conclave? This ancient floating fortress that was... It kind of had 1 foot in Ancient Floating Fortress and 1 foot in The Last Leviathan Hunter, if I recall correctly. And so...
And there are segments of it, like though very limited to my understanding, that we've started to bolt on really grotesque contemporary technology onto these old... But that it isn't entirely the case, to my understanding.
But yeah, there's lots of... Because like your hangar and all of the like mess halls and all this kind of stuff are all like add-ons to this fortress. You basically live in this thing most of the time. And so yeah, there's like a modern, it's like a little floating island, and there's a modern military encampment set up inside of this floating like old castle-y thing.
I feel like the I'm not sure what the thing would be, but it strikes me that the effort to conceal it would very likely be part of that, like part of the military compound, like barring some doors, like
I think there's a whole aspect to this and like a story to it that doesn't fit the narrative of the propaganda board does not see utility in this. And I think it comes through in there's like a shot of you, like you're like running your hand along a wall while walking through this like enormous dark corridor that leads to like a half ruined section of this like fortress thing. And your hand comes away like covered in black dust, and you look back at the wall and the dust has like covered over everything, but there's a mural, and we get that like brushing away and frantic brushing away of things, and you start like, as more of these images are exposed and you're seeing this narrative that's kind of like a tapestry style or like amphora style, like in 2D kind of panel narrative, more and more like feelings kind of like bleed out of the walls and into you, and your hands are covered in this dust that you realize is like the ashes of the people that made this. And there's this like doom and gloom prophecy, and you get all these like flashes of feelings. some of which are memories belonging to our mutual friend Prophet. I think you see like her hands closing something that's like there's like a glowing light behind it, and there's like when that closes, everything goes black in this very like absolute way, and you hear the sound of her like panicked breathing slowly quiet, as if she were like going to sleep after having a nightmare, or like waking up from a nightmare in reverse.
Yes,
And
yes,
then
all
like
the above.
you're there again back in your body.
Can I flavor that with one tiny little thing?
Oh yeah, please.
That in the background, like what's backlighting her is these three sort of glowing gems in this triangular shape that
Oh, like there are like three windows very distant in the hall, high up.
Yes.
And like you're in this like sliver of light projected from the three of them.
Almost like you're having nightmares about three things or people, perhaps.
And then of course a cloud passes over them.
Yeah.
Right. And everything goes truly dark. And like that's what snaps you out of it. Cool. Okay, there's the thing you saw. Next.
All right. Prophet is gonna. I'd like to have Prophet find you as you're coming back, Abbott. Is that?
Yeah, that's great.
And she.
What does Prophet look like?
So I was just like last minute grabbing, like Googling magical girl anime characters to be like looking for inspiration.
Yeah.
And so the one that I found that I felt like was the closest was one that Josh identified as being from the Oran. Is that right? Is that how you pronounce it, Josh?
But what is this person
Oran
like?
High School Club. And I may or may not use the actual image, but I will describe it. She is tall, and I think at least a head taller than Abbott, who is
more than if she's tall, if Prophet is tall, Abbott is quite like slight. So.
And she has shoulder length shoulder length black hair that normally kind of sort of curls. It splits in this very anime impossible way, where some of it kind of curls under her chin and some of it goes back.
That's just called having good stylist. But excellent.
Yes, but
excellent.
Right, in this world, one thing I can do is
you're in the army and yet still have like impossibly beautiful long hair.
Yes.
We do.
So
maybe
good.
it's because of PR, or maybe it's because it's just immortally amazing hair. And I think it might be it's the only sort of adornment that I think that she has. She almost always walks around, in contrast to you, in her like flight suit, because it is her uniform.
Yeah.
And her flight suit looks like it's all these like stone plates with or this is the motif that it's meant to look like. It's all these stone plates with this like blue embers kind of glowing between the cracks in them. So there's like a breastplate, kind of, it's not armor per se, but it's pseudo shaped like armor. And then there's this glow of what used to be a bright flame and is now like a dulled blue flame, like we saw when the very opening of Raina's scene, where when the fire in her hair was like very lit. Like this is a burnt out flame underneath. And she is and I think that she is also she has sort of willowy features, which are not uncommon of anime characters. And the wrap of her foot on these stone corridors is clearly the click of her boots, which are pseudo metallic, right? So whereas Abbott may have been very soft sounds moving through. Hers aren't loud. She's not being rambunctious, but it's pronounced. You can almost probably tell just from her gait that
absolutely. Abbott certainly can.
There's like the clack 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 of her.
Yeah, it's almost officious.
Yeah. She doesn't. She very, very rarely runs. She's like studious in like making her way to things in her time, in the right amount of time. It's not to say that she doesn't like get pumped up in a fight and all these other things, but like whenever possible, she tries not to be like rushed by things. It's like her own meditation technique of like, I'm going to go at my speed. I'm not going to let somebody rush me.
Love it. So good.
Yeah. And so therefore like her gait is just super predictable.
It's so good. And I can well imagine in one of these like ginormously scaled back corridors, like the sound of
like echoey.
And Abbott pausing and deciding to walk towards you.
Nice.
Like there's this very considered minute of like looks at a back corridor.
Yeah,
and glances at the tapestry.
Right, and I think a sliver of light comes through as she has a flashlight. Right, like you were walking through in the dark because you can just navigate this no problem. She definitely has, this big, heavy hand lamp that is casting a penetrating. But it's like one ray and just fills up one spot as it moves, like almost like a spotlight.
So good.
And when she finds you. It's clear that she's been looking for you because, and she, for a moment, she blinds you with the light because she raises it up and then quickly lowers it back down so that it's at your feet. So the light is pooling around your feet.
Great.
And
I found your nightmares covered in soot and.
She kind of looks up and doesn't know what this place is or doesn't remember what this place is right now. And so she thinks you're meaning that metaphorically. She's like, I'm sure you have. And there will be plenty more. In fact, I have one right now. There's a means to improve the engines and the engineers wanted me to work with you to facilitate it. So wondering if we could talk.
Okay.
And
now?
Now.
Here?
Here is fine.
Great. What are we going to do?
And I think I don't know what this conversation should entail, but I know it has nothing to do with the engines. And it's
this is just like an awkward date.
Well, I want to check. Okay. So I was looking at analyze. I was thinking about like what is the way that Prophet and Abbott. What is the way that Prophet thinks of Abbott right now? And it's I don't understand what happened, and I don't know. I know what happened. I freaked out. I don't understand where you are because you didn't seem to freak out. I expected you to freak out too, and you didn't. And so I'm trying to figure out what's going on in Abbott's head. And she's using the pretense of talking about the technology, or not the technology, the magic, as a way to find out how you're doing, how you feel about her.
Totally.
And whether or not there's a chance that you would forgive her.
Great.
So I want to analyze, because I feel like it's really appropriate that you used empathize to empathize with the machine, and I'm going to use analyze to analyze a person. It's like the exact opposite.
Yes. Okay.
So yes, I'm trying to form a social link by trying to figure out if there's any space in your life for me.
Woof.
And that information is hidden, clearly.
Yo, yeah, you were hidden.
And while I imagine that there's like this long staring pause after that minute, in which like Abbott will very briefly be like, "Do you still have nightmares?"
How much do you want that to go over Prophet's head? I mean, do you want Prophet to know what you're talking about, or are you kind of talking on a different wavelength than her?
I am pretty content in the minute I'm excited to basically talk on the wrong wavelength from everyone all the time, always.
Cool. So I think Abbott thinks you're talking about just contemporary, like her fears.
Yeah.
And just like when you say, "Oh, that's a nightmare," like she doesn't know what you just saw, and she doesn't. In this room, in the dark, without the light illuminating it, without being there to share that moment with you, she didn't see what you just saw. So she's talking to you about the here and now, and it's very clearly like missing the point.
Sure.
And she'll tell you her fears, but they're not those fears.
Right. They're the between Prophet and Abbott fears.
Yeah.
Does she like go like lay those out? Like,
oh yeah, she totally does it in metaphor. She's like, I'm afraid there's things that are broken that we can't fix, and I'm hoping that if you and I take what we know together, then maybe we can repair.
so theoretically, still talking about the engines.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Because she's too afraid to expose how she really
Speaking
feels.
in metaphor, meaning of
she's-
course like talking around and being
Yes.
Yes.
and right.
Yeah. It's all subtext. Thank you. Yeah. It's Raj.
So good.
All. I was like, who said that? Oh, wait, it's Josh. Yeah.
I'm being a fan and observing.
Is Andy, is this something that Abbott would enjoy?
Yeah. Secretly, yeah.
cool.
That
Awesome.
like
Yay. that's delightful.
It kind of, this is both of y'all kind of trying to meet each other halfway and engage in a way that you think will be okay for the other. Like you're
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Prophet is talking about machine stuff or using those as a metaphor for relationships, and that therefore that makes sense to Abbott, who also just kind of naively is like, yes, that's what we're talking about.
right.
So
But
it is kind of pleasant in a way that
Abbott is also talking about nightmares and fears and emotions in a way that is, yeah. So
yeah.
I think it's great. I think it's lovely, and it's for me, it's a really important opener of like, are we trying to patch things up, or is this going to be a mess, or is it going to be super contentious? Because I know Raina knows that we're just going to break each other's heart, or I'm just going to break your heart again.
Right.
So this is good no matter how well it goes, right? Like if it goes poorly, I'm thwarted. If it goes well, Raina has a job to do. So you know, we can't lose. All right, so I'm gonna roll a thing.
Yeah. What's it
I'm
look
gonna
like?
roll analyze, and I get a bonus die because you like it.
Yeah.
You are
Yep.
participating. Cool. Nice.
Yeah.
And I want to say that bonus die was the 4 because it's the second roll. The second
Okay.
one there. So I think you know.
Couldn't have done it without you.
Yeah. So I get
So you're gonna get 2 links.
Two
Well, sorry. Andy is gonna
and-
record 2 links.
Yeah.
Great.
Abbott and Prophet.
Great.
oh my goodness. Yeah. There has been no break.
We've been playing for 2 hours without a break.
Oh my goodness.
Blink and you miss it.
Yeah. Are we okay taking a break now since it has been 2 hours? I know
It's
we're
like
still in
as
the
good a
middle of
time as any to
Yeah. Let's do that, and then we'll talk about what that looks like from there. Awesome.
Awesome. All right. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks came from the Wildwood. We'll be back in 5. Take care.